The God of the universe, the Savior of the world, chose to make himself nothing. Man, that should say something to our culture, to our people, to us. He made himself nothing. And can you imagine? Put yourself in Jesus' shoes. You're living for all eternity, God of the universe, Savior of the world, in paradise. All power, all dominion, everything, it's all yours. I promise you it wasn't his only option as the God of the universe. There were other ways this process could have unfolded. Yet he chose to make himself nothing, leaving all of that focused, knowing this is the way it has to be. This is the process. And it seems so upside down to us. I mean, he comes and really is the King of Kings, and now in retrospect we see it all, but can you imagine, him walking in the lowliest places on earth, hanging out with the sinners, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, becoming a nobody, being brutally tortured and beat and spat on, hanging on a cross and giving up his life, all the while people just mocking him and making fun of him and enticing him, saying, "You're the Savior of the world. Come down from that cross." You think he couldn't have? Absolutely he could have, but he saw the bigger picture. He chose to make himself nothing, and he said to his followers, to us, "Follow me. Follow me." That should say something to a culture that says nothing is impossible for you, to a culture that says you can be whatever you want to be. Do whatever you have to do to climb the ladder of success. Into this culture, into our culture, the Apostle Paul says, follow the example of Jesus, who put everyone else above himself and made himself nothing. What should you aspire to be when you grow up? According to Jesus, nothing. Aspire. In other words, not that you, it's not in the sense that you sit on the couch and are a total bum. I hate to tell some of you that. It's not your excuse to, well, Jesus told me to be nothing, so I'm going to sit here and watch TV all day. That's not what he's talking about. But he's saying it's not about doing whatever you have to do to make yourself great. In fact, it's not about you at all. It's not about you at all. There's somebody, hear me, there's somebody that's greater than you that's at the center of the universe. I know that's hard to hear in a self-seeking culture that says it's all about me. It's hard for me to grapple with and to understand. I get it. I get it. But the scriptures teach us that there is somebody else that's greater than you, that's at the center of the universe, and it's about him and his plan and his way. It's about aspiring to follow after him and to serve as he served. He said, you want to be first in the kingdom of heaven? Then you got to be last. You want to be at the front of the line when the new kingdom comes? Your spot then right now is to go to the back of the line. You want to be great in the kingdom of heaven? Follow my example and serve. Become slave of all is literally what the scriptures teach us. Become servant of all. I mean, what kind of king comes not to establish his reign by getting all these people to serve him and to his needs, but says, no, I didn't come to get, I came to serve. And he goes to his disciples and he begins washing their feet. Give your life in service to everyone. That's what it means to have the same love. That's what it means to follow Christ. You know, I want to do something a little different this morning. if it's okay with you, in the last few minutes we're going to have, we're going to have a little bit of story time, and I want to just read a portion from a book to you. There's a book called The Hole in Our Gospel, and it's written by Richard Stearns, who's the president of World Vision. It's an amazing ministry doing amazing things for around the world with poverty and the whole HIV/AIDS epidemic. They're doing some amazing things. But I want to just read you the prologue of this book, which is Richard's story on beginning this new journey in his life as the president of World Vision, and what happens when you begin to feel God's love for others and think of them before yourselves. So I'm just going to take a minute and read this to you guys. This is his writings from Rakai, Uganda in August 1998. His name was Richard, the same as mine. I sat inside his meager thatch hut listening to his story, told through the tears of an orphan whose parents had died of AIDS. At 13, Richard was trying to raise his two younger brothers by himself in this small shack with no running water, electricity, or even beds to sleep in. There were no adults in their lives, no one to care for them, feed them, love them, or teach them how to become men. There was no one to hug them either or to tuck them in at night. Other than his siblings, Richard was alone, as no child should be. I try to picture my own children abandoned in this kind of deprivation, fending for themselves without parents to protect them, and I cannot. I didn't want to be there. I wasn't supposed to be there. So far out of my comfort zone, not in that place where orphan children live by themselves in their agony. Their poverty and disease and squalor had eyes and faces that stared back, and I had to see and smell and touch the pain of the poor. That particular district, Rakai, is believed to be ground zero for the Ugandan AIDS pandemic. There, the deadly virus has stalked its victims in the dark for decades. Sweat trickled down my face as I sat awkwardly with Richard and his brothers, while a film crew captured every tear, mine and theirs. I much preferred living in my bubble, the one that, until that moment, had safely contained my life, family, and career. It kept difficult things like this out, insulating me from anything too raw or upsetting. When such things had intruded, as they rarely did, a channel could be changed, a newspaper page could be turned, or a check written to keep the poor at a safe distance. But not in Rakai. There, such things had faces and names, even my name, Richard. Not 60 days earlier, I had been CEO of Lennox, America's finest tableware company, producing and selling luxury goods to those who could afford them. I lived with my wife and 5 children in a 10-bedroom house on 5 acres just outside Philadelphia. I drove a Jaguar to work every day, and my business travel took me to places such as Paris, Tokyo, London, and Florence. I flew first class and stayed in the best hotels. I was respected in my community, attended a venerable suburban church, and sat on the board of my kids' Christian school. I was one of the good guys. You might say a poster child for the successful Christian life. I had never heard of Rakai, the place where my bubble would burst, but in just 60 days, God turned my life inside out, and it would never be the same. Quite unexpectedly, 8 months earlier, I had been contacted by World Vision, the Christian relief and development organization, during their search for a new president. Why me? It wasn't something I had sought after. In fact, you might say I had been minding my own business when the phone rang that day. But it was a phone call that had been 24 years in the planning. You see, in 1974, at the age of 23, in my graduate school dormitory, I knelt down beside my bed and dedicated my life to Christ. This was no small decision for me, and it came only after months of reading, studying, conversation with friends, and the important witness of Renee, the woman who would later become my wife.